Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Google Digital Garage. Just before we get started, I just want to make sure everyone can see and hear me okay. So if you are having any problems whatsoever with your sound or picture, then the best thing you can do is refresh the window. Just hit that little refresh button at the top of the screen. That fixes most of our issues. If you're still having problems, then you have your YouTube settings in the bottom right corner of the video. There is a little cog button. Click that and you should be able to adjust things like the quality of the video so it runs nice and smoothly. So hello, welcome to Find Your Career Goals. As I mentioned before, my name is Zoe. I'm one of the many trainers for the Google Digital Garage, which is Google's free skills training program. Just a little bit about me. So my day job is I work in marketing. I have my own little marketing business. I've been in that field for about 10 years now. I've worked in small agencies. I've worked for myself. I've worked for larger companies. Sorry, ignore the whining in the background. My dog is also in the room with me and he's being annoying this morning. So that'll be fun for all of us. But yeah, I've been working in marketing for about 10 years and I've used that to sort of join the Google Digital Garage and help train other people in all sorts of marketing and digital skills. But I've also had sort of quite a varied career. I'm currently a self-defense instructor as well. I'm a professional wrestler. I've sort of taken a few big steps in terms of my career, and they've paid off so far. And I've been able to do things that I've absolutely loved. And that's what we're here to talk about today. We're here to find our career goals and work out what it is that you would be able to do, that you'd love to do, and that people would pay you to do, of course. Now, I'm not here alone. I am joined by the magnificent, the wonderful Chami. So Chami is our moderator today. What that means is that he's going to be in the chat, chatting to all of you, sharing links, sharing advice, and of course, most importantly, answering questions that any of you have today. So if there is anything that you would like to know, anything that's not clear, anything that you'd like a little bit more detail about, all you need to do is go into the chat and just ask Chami, and he'll answer as many questions as he can answer. If there's any that are maybe too detailed or too long, because I think he's only got 200 characters with which to answer, then he might pass them over to me, and we will have question breaks as well throughout the session. Last sort of bits of housekeeping, we are running this as part of a very broad offering of courses. If you enjoy what you're watching today, then we have webinars on a range of different topics. We've got all about digital marketing, about building your own personal brand, about developing CVs and cover letters. All of those, just like this one, are completely free and available for you to access whenever you want. So if you have a look, there's a link in the bio of this video, which should take you to all of our webinars, and you can explore them and see if there's any more learning that you would like to do. So today we have got three main goals that we're going to be focusing on. Number one, we want you to discover what you enjoy doing. What is it that you love? What is it that you would love to do as a career? We've obviously got to bear in mind that sometimes things that we love to do, we might stop loving them if we do them as a career, if we do them day in, day out, and we have to do them every single day. So finding that balance is very important. We need to work out what you're good at. We'll delve into this in a little bit, but just because you enjoy something doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be good at that thing. So people might not employ you to do that as a career. And of course, we want other people to value for that as well. And this is a very professional thing. And basically, it just means if someone doesn't value your skill, they're not going to pay you to do it. There might be some things that we're really, really good at, that we really love, but that people wouldn't pay us to do. So we can't use them as a career. Ultimately, we are dependent on people actually wanting to hire us for these roles. So why do you even need a career goal in the first place? Well, the job market is changing. I mentioned that I've been in marketing for 10 years. Yeah, it was 10 years last week, in fact. So exactly 10 years almost. In that time, marketing has changed really, really drastically for me. When I started out, the job was all about writing articles for websites, and we would write 30 articles a day. And it wouldn't matter how good they were. The important thing wasn't that the articles were that anyone was reading them. The important thing was that we were getting keywords on websites, because that was how Google worked at the time with its algorithm. Then Google made some really great changes to its algorithm. Suddenly, my job changed overnight. And actually, the quality of the articles became much more important than speed and getting those keywords in. that was a big change. Some people didn't like that. I benefited from that. I think I much preferred it when we could write actually good articles. But some people, their skill was writing things quickly, and that was suddenly no longer valued. So things do change. Your job market might change. We've got all sorts of things like AI that were not really a career field a little while ago, but now AI is very much something that a lot of people are going into. So there are new aspects to the career market all the time, as well as industries that are maybe shrinking, and maybe there's less chance to join them than there was in the past. You also want a sense of purpose with your career. Bear in mind your career is going to be where you spend most of your life. We spend a huge chunk of our days working. So it's important that we have a sense of purpose and fulfillment when we are working, so that we can actually enjoy them, so that we can have have some benefits to that beyond just getting a paycheck. And of course, we want you to take control of your professional journey. It is not as simple as just finding whatever comes along. If you're doing that, it can be very unfulfilling, and it can also be very stressful. It helps if you know what your goal is, what you would like to do. If you can have that sort of control over what you do as a career, you'll find it less stressful, you'll find it more fulfilling, and you will ideally find a career that suits you better than any others. So I have a question for you all. Now, when I ask these questions, I am going to probably move on before I get any answers. That's just because there is a little bit of a delay between me speaking and you actually hearing me. And if I were to sit around waiting for answers, then it would just be us sitting in silence for 5 minutes, and nobody wants that. So I'm going to ask this question, and then I'm going to move on, but I'm going to come back to the answers whenever I get them. And the question is simple. When were you the most fulfilled by a job or a volunteering activity or a task? It can be anytime in the past and present. If I was thinking about the time I felt the most fulfilled, I would say probably it was after my third wrestling match. So again, I mentioned I'm a pro wrestler, and my first match was terrifying. My second match was terrifying, but my third match I wrestled twice in one night. And at the end of that, it was such a sense of achievement. And I really felt like I'd got to grips a little bit with what I was doing. And I just felt, I was tired, I was battered, I was bruised, but I felt like I'd really achieved something. That was when I'd felt fulfilled. That was that sense of fulfillment. And you'll notice nothing about that was to do with a paycheck. I don't know if you know anything about the professional wrestling industry, but you do not get paid a lot. I got barely any money for that. I was slammed around a ring for sort of £30. It wasn't about the paycheck. The fulfillment came from me developing a skill and getting to showcase that skill in front of other people and entertaining those people and having that sense of achievement after I'd done that. It was nothing to do with how much I got paid. So fulfillment and salary are not necessarily connected. They can absolutely be, but it's worth bearing in mind that they don't have to be. So there are 3 key elements to a job to make a job fulfilling. Number 1 is something that you enjoy doing. That's nice and simple. We've all got things that we enjoy. We've all got things that we love. Number 2 is something that you're good at. I mentioned before that my third wrestling match was my most fulfilling. That was because my first, I felt like I did a bad job. It wasn't very fulfilling because it was still something I was learning to do. So if it's something that you're good at, you will feel fulfilled. You won't feel stressed about it. Whereas if it's something that you're maybe learning that you're not as good at, it can be that it becomes very stressful. It becomes very unfulfilling because you're constantly feeling like you've done a bad job. And this is where things like imposter syndrome can come into play. But the third part of this little Venn diagram, and a really important part, is that it has to be something that people value because they're the ones paying you to do it. So it has to be all those 3 things to be a very fulfilling job, to be a fulfilling role. And if we take each of them separately, we can see that there are aspects to this that we probably have in our life already. So something that we're good at, but that we don't enjoy doing and that people don't value. Well, maybe that's chores. I'm quite good at doing the hoovering. I don't like doing the hoovering, but when I do it, I get really clean carpets and everything looks great. And I feel like I can do it pretty quickly and pretty effectively. But I don't enjoy doing it. And nobody really values the amount that I do hoovering to pay me enough to live on. Maybe I could set up my own hoovering business, but that's not going to happen. So it's just a chore. It's a practice chore. It's something that you may be good at. You've maybe done it loads and loads and loads. Think how many times you've washed the dishes in your life. or how many times you've cooked a meal. It might not be something that you like, it might not be something that anyone values, but it is something that you've got a skill at. So that's a chore, and that's where we really don't want to be. Because if we don't enjoy it, then, again, maybe some of you are in jobs already that are like this, that you're really good at data entry, but you hate data entry. And it's not something that anyone values. People don't. And when we say value, it's not just about the money, of course. Maybe you're really great at data entry, but everyone thinks that it's grunt work and no one actually thinks that you're skilled. And so you're not getting that value in terms of actual valuing your skill. So that can also be something that can sap away the enjoyment of a job. If it's something that you enjoy doing but you're not good at and people don't value, then it's just fun. I like playing video games. I'm terrible at them. Doesn't matter. I have a lot of fun with them, but I'm not good at them, and no one would pay me to play video games badly. So that's not going to be a fulfilling career. If it's something that people value but you're not good at and you don't enjoy, well, then it's just not for you. Something that people really value, playing football. Footballers make, professional footballers, when they get to the Premier Leagues, they're making millions and millions and millions of pounds. Obviously, people really value that, but I don't like playing football, and even if I did, I'm terrible at it. So that would fit in this sort of part of the Venn diagram for me. It's not something that I'm good at. It's not something that I enjoy. It's not going to be a viable, fulfilling career for me. But so let's look at the ones that meet two of the criteria, not just one. So, for example, something that I'm good at, something that you enjoy doing, but not something that people value. Well, that is a skilled hobby. I paint Warhammer. I know, I'm so cool. But it's one of my little hobbies, is that I paint little figures and we play little games with them. I really enjoy doing that. And you know what? I'm quite good at painting. I think I can make my little models look really, really nice. But no one values that. No one's paying me to do that. Nobody thinks that that's something, oh, you know what, there's a real career in there for you. So that's just a skilled hobby. It's something that I love, something that I'm good at, but it's not something anyone's going to pay me for. If it's something that you enjoy doing and people value, but you're not good at, well, this is where we get low skill jobs. One of my favorite jobs I ever had was that I worked at a cinema, and I was an usher, and I cleaned up the cinema screens, and I took people's tickets, and it wasn't something that you really could be that good at because there wasn't a lot of skill in the job. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed being around film. I really enjoyed being able to socialize as part of my job. But it is a low skill job. It was never going to be something that I made my career. It was something that, and that was the case with everybody who worked there. It was a job for sort of students, for young people, a job that you had until you moved on to something different. Largely, not always, not for everybody. Some people get really good at it and they stay on and they become managers and they work in that cinema. And they find that a very fulfilling career. But for a lot of people, I wouldn't have found that fulfilling. Because as much as I loved it and as much as people did pay me to do it, it wasn't a high skill job. It wasn't something I could really develop at. It wasn't fulfilling in that way. Something that you're good at and you value but that you don't enjoy, and this is where I think most jobs fall into, it's just a boring job. Maybe you're great at admin, and people will pay you to do admin for them, but you hate it. And so that means that you're going into your job day in, day out, and you're going, oh, I don't want to go to work today, but you have to go to work because that's how you get your paycheck. So you go to work and you have a miserable time for 8 hours, and you come home and you're tired from work and you're stressed, and you just basically go to bed and then do the whole thing again day in, day out. That's a boring job. We don't want that for you. That's not fulfilling. That's not a career that's going to really, really, really fulfill you professionally. That's where we have all three. That's your ideal career, is where we've got something you're good at, you enjoy doing, and something people value. And that is your ideal career. That's what we're looking for. So we need to think then about what motivates us. If we're going to work out what it is that fulfills us, we need to know what motivates us. What is it that you enjoy? What is it that helps you when you get praised for something? Now, for some of us, this is going to be salary, but by and large, the answer isn't salary for most people. Once we earn past the amount that we need to survive comfortably, I'm earning enough to sort of pay rent, to keep me fed, to keep my dog fed, to support my hobbies. After that point, more money. Yeah, maybe it would be nice. Maybe I'd be able to get a house, and a bigger house, and more dogs, and that would all be lovely. But actually, it wouldn't be my top motivator, not when it comes to work. So here we've got a lot of different things, that could be part of recognition, part of motivation even. Recognition is a big one, and this is the number one thing that I think most people say is recognition that they're good at their job, recognition of a job well done. You know, I mentioned before professional wrestling is something that I do that I find fulfilling. The recognition there is immediate because you do a big move and you finish your match and everyone is cheering and clapping. Or if you're the baddie, everyone's booing you and you're immediately getting recognition, you know, that you're doing your job right. You're doing a good job and the crowd is into it. That's why people like performing, whether it's, you know, music or theatre or art. People like performing because you get that instant recognition of people going, you have done a great job here. You know, that's why people do it, and it's important in any job. You know, your boss saying that was a really great job, that's recognition, and having a role that gives you that is important. We've also got benefits, bonuses, a sense of purpose. You know, are you doing something that makes you feel like you have a real purpose on this earth? You know, are you doing something that makes the world better, for example? Company culture as well. Are you part of a company that you're proud to be part of? You know, I am still in touch with all of the people who I used to work with at an office 5 years ago. We meet up really regularly. None of us work there anymore. In fact, the company I don't think even exists, but we meet up really regularly and we stay in touch because the culture was so great. And you know what? It wasn't a fantastic job, but the culture made it fantastic. And it was really, really really motivated me to stay in that role. So let's go back to our first sort of circle, something that we enjoy doing. Now, what I want you to do is get your note-taking equipment ready if you've got a piece of paper and a pen nearby, because that will help you in some of these sections to come. So first step, we're going to find words and phrases that are going to describe things that you enjoy. I'm going to give you some examples on the next slide. So what I want you to think about is what exact tasks you enjoy rather than jobs, the tasks, the things that you do. So instead of saying, I like being a teacher, you could say, well, I enjoy helping people learn. I enjoy managing a classroom. I enjoy working with children and young people, things like that. Do that and put that in a column on your piece of paper. I want you to draw 2 columns. And in that first column, I want you to write down the words and the phrases that describe the tasks and the activities that you enjoy. So I'm going to give you some examples. So helping others, having ideas, secure and stable work, working independently, work-life balance, being an expert, organizing people, solving problems. And what I want you to do is select your top 3 once you've finished your list. So just jot down, first of all, in that first column, jot down as many as you can think of. And then once you've got them, I want you to circle the 3 that are the most important for you. So for me, it might be, I like working independently. I think that's really important to me. I like being an expert. I like, you know, feeling like I know what I'm talking about. I like helping others as well. That's why, you know, those 3 things are why I'm a trainer. I do this on a freelance basis. So I'm a freelancer. I'm working independently. I'm in an expert role because I'm the one, you know, behind the camera talking to people, but I also like helping others. So I've found a career that lets me do that. So choose your top 3 out of all of those. Then I want you to think about what phrases describe what you either do now or what you've done before if you're not currently in a role. So let's go back to that list. And in your second column, I want you to write down all the things that you've done in previous jobs. And here we don't want you to focus on what you liked about the roles. We don't want you to write down all of your favorite parts of your old jobs. But what did you actually do? So again, I'll put these examples on the screen here. So if I was to look back at my first job in a marketing agency, well, what did I do? I didn't really help others, or if I did, I never got to meet them or see them because I was working for clients that I never talked to. I got to have ideas. It was secure and stable work for a while, so I guess there's that. It wasn't independent. I didn't have a very good work-life balance. I wasn't able to be an expert. I didn't get to organize people. I did get to solve problems, though. So I did get some things out of that role. But if you'll notice, none of those are the things that I actually value. I didn't get to help others. I didn't get to work independently, and I didn't get to be an expert. So there's a discrepancy there, and I want you to think about your own notes as you do this, because that's where we are now. We want to compare our current list and our ideal list. What is it that you currently do, that you're currently getting, and does that match up with your ideal goals? Maybe it does. Maybe that's great. Maybe you're able to identify, look, the things that I've done in previous roles are actually what I really value. And so that's what I can be looking for, is that industry. But if they don't match up, we'll try and work out what industries and where you could be going that would help your ideal list and your current list be one and the same. You also want to think about how you want to work, not just what you do, but how do you want to work? Do you want to work full time? Do you want to work part time? Do you want to be a freelancer and work for yourself and keep your own hours? Do you want to work remotely, working from home? I'm here in my living room right now. I'm working remotely. Or do you want to be in an office and work on site? I know a lot of people who really, really struggle working from home and want to be in a room with other people. Think about your work-life balance as well. What are your priorities there? Do you want to have the free time to spend time with, family, friends, pets, loved ones? How much time are you happy spending with them? Obviously, ideally, we'd spend all our time with our loved ones. We would never be apart from them. Well, everyone needs some solo time, I guess, don't they? But we do have to strike a balance, because we need to earn money to survive. So, what level would you be comfortable with? Would you be comfortable working 9 to 5, 5 days a week, if it gave you the money and it gave you the freedom to do everything you've ever wanted with your loved ones in your spare time, for example? Set yourself some realistic expectations with these. Again, like, I would love a job that paid me £100,000 a year to do 1 hour of work a week. That would be perfect. That would be ideal. It will not surprise you that I'm not getting paid £100,000 a year to do this one webinar. That's not realistic. Nobody's going to pay you to do that little work for that much money, unless you're sort of a CEO or something. And then decide how your day-to-day is going to look as well. What would you like your day to be? Are you an early riser? Do you want a lot of time in the evenings? Would you rather get up early and get your work day done and be done by 3 o'clock? Like a lot of people who work in education, although there's a lot of work they have to do outside of hours, I suppose, but a lot of people who work in education like having the freedom to finish their official work at 3 o'clock. And then they obviously have other work to do, but they can do that in their own time. Are you a late riser? Would you rather work late? Would you rather work small chunks throughout the day, or would you rather do one continuous period of work? Would you like to be traveling as part of your work? Would you like to be going from place to place? You're driving to one job, then another. Would you like to do it all in the comfort of your own home? So think about all of those things when you're thinking about your work-life balance. So we've got a bit of a question break. I'm just going to have a sip of coffee so I don't lose my voice. Doesn't look like we've got any questions at the minute. Let me just double check. So we are going to move on and focus on our next step, which is the things that you're good at. So I want you to get your note-taking equipment ready again. And again, we're going to get 2 columns on our page, 1 column next to the other. So what are you good at? Well, in order to find a job or a career that you're good at, you're going to need to work out what your skills are. And there are loads of different skills that you could have. We tend to group them into soft skills and hard skills. So soft skills are basically, the way that I would look at it, are soft skills are things that you wouldn't be able to get a qualification in. You're not going to be able to get a BTEC in compassion or a degree in reliability. But they are still skills, and they are still very relevant skills. Diligence, reliability, leadership, adaptability, compassion. These are fantastic things to be good at. These are really, really important. And actually, recruiters tend to focus a little bit more on soft skills than you might expect, because everyone that they shortlist for the job will have basically the same hard skills. It's the soft skills that make candidates stand out from each other. So do take a look at your soft skills and think, what are you good at in that respect? What personal attributes do you have that make you really good for a particular role? Hard skills then are things that you probably could get a qualification in. So graphic design, you could get a degree in that. You could get a BTEC or an MBQ or something like that in graphic design. Coding, budgeting, Microsoft Excel, public speaking, they're more sort of tangible skills. They are learned and they can be improved through practice. But I would say that's probably the case with every skill. You know, something like reliability. Yeah, you might not be that reliable right now, but if you were to really like practice and focus on becoming more reliable, you could get better at it. So I'd say every skill can be learned and improved through practice. But the difference with sort of hard skills is that they are more formal. That there's you'll be able to find books on them, you'll be able to find courses on them, and you tend to be able to get qualifications in them. So when we're thinking about skills, then some of you might be looking at your sheet right now and thinking, I don't have any skills. I'm not good at any of those things. Or maybe you've got one or two. And the reason for that might be something called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Now, this is all about how we perceive the things that we are good at. So we've got our little graph here, and on one side, we've got confidence on the, I want to say y-axis, the up axis, the up and down one. Vertical is the word for that. Maths is not one of my strong skills, so graphs are a bit beyond me. But the vertical axis, we've got confidence. And so as the point on the graph goes up, you're more and more confident. So the closer you are to the top of that axis, the more confident you are in your skill. But the horizontal axis, the bottom one, that is competence. So the further you go along that axis, the better you are at something, the higher your level of skill is. And so here we have a little graph. So when we start out, let me get my little virtual laser pointer. When we start out, we're down here. This is where we are just starting a skill. We've never done it before, and as you can see, our level of confidence is low, competence, sorry, is low. It's not something we've ever done before. We've just started. We don't have this skill yet. Let's say it's singing. You know, maybe you've never sung a song before in your life. You've never had the confidence, and you step up at a karaoke night and you start to sing. And yeah, you're not very good at singing. You've never sung before in your life. You're terrible at it. But also, your level of confidence is quite accurate. You don't think you're very good at singing either. So you've got an accurate idea of where your skill level is at. And as time goes on, you can see our skill levels are going to rise as we learn more about this skill. As we start doing it more, we start singing a little bit more and a little bit more, and we get more and more confident in it. We think, wow, we're getting really good at singing. This is where our confidence is going to start to outweigh our competence. And this is where you find people who've done things a little bit who are way more confident than people who've done it for longer. This is the peak, the confidence peak. And this is where we're overestimating our abilities. This is where we've done a few karaoke nights and we think, you know what, I can go on X Factor. I can go on Britain's Got Talent. I'm a great singer. I'm one of the best singers. I'm incredible at singing because you've done it a little bit. And what typically happens is when you start to do something and you start getting better at it and better at it, you get very confident, which is good, but you don't know how much there is to learn yet. You don't quite know how much there is left for you to learn. So you think you've basically mastered it. But then you end up in the next bit, which is the valley of non-confidence. I'm making this up as I go along. I don't know if there is a proper term for this, for the valley of non-confidence. But this is where you realize how much more there is to learn. You know, you're singing, you start hearing terms like vibrato, and you think, well, I don't actually know what that is. People keep telling you to sing from your diaphragm, but you don't know how to do that. You've never learned how to do that. So even though at this point we are still very good, we're better than we were when we were really confident. But we've maybe seen how much there is to learn still, and we think, oh, well, we can't be that good. So now we're underestimating our levels of competence. And that's where I think a lot of people are with their skills. You know, you've got something that you are genuinely good at, but you can see all the people who are better at it than you. You know, I used to think this about writing. So I mentioned when I started out, I was a marketing writer, and I would get to this point, and what I do is that I would write for myself. I'd write fiction for myself, and I think, well, I'm a terrible writer. You know, how am I writing fiction for myself? I'm terrible at this. And the reason why I thought that was because I was reading all of my favorite novelists. I was reading my Terry Pratchett books. I was reading my fantasy novels, and I was thinking, these guys are so good. I'm nowhere near as good as these people, so I must be bad at this. I must be terrible at this. That's where I was in this competence sort of dip. But then we get to the point where we become an expert and we realize how good we are at something. And you'll notice that this is finally, where our levels of confidence and our levels of competence actually match up. This is the only time our confidence and our competence has actually been the same since we started. So throughout, we've had a really inaccurate view of how good we are at something. We've either thought we're better than we are, or we learn a bit more and then we think we're worse than we are. It's only when we become experts that we actually become appropriately confident. A bit of advice that I've got is to try and focus, if you are in this sort of dip, if you've got a skill that you are good at, but then you're looking at other people and thinking, God, I'm rubbish at this. Don't look at the experts. Don't look at the people who are perfect at it. You know, I read all of my favorite novelists and spent that time going, oh, well, I must be terrible at writing then. But actually what I did to get out of that dip was that I read bad novels. I read trashy romance novels and sort of £2 paperback sci-fi novels, and reading them and going, wow, those things got published and they're rubbish. I'm better than that. Made me realize, okay, well, I'm not an expert. I'm not the best in the world, but I'm still good at this thing. I'm not bad at it just because there are people who are better at it than me. And that's kind of the perspective that you need to try and find for your own skills. You know, just because you're not the expert, the best person in the world, the number one authority at something, doesn't mean you're not still very, very good at it. Doesn't mean you're not great at it. So try and have an accurate picture of where you are in terms of your competence. So a bit of an activity now. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to think about what words other people would use to describe you. And you can ask other people this as well. We tend to be very bad at estimating our own skills. We tend to undervalue ourselves. So it can mean that basically we don't know what our actual skills are. So ask a colleague, ask a friend, ask a family member, someone who will answer honestly to describe you professionally. They might say something like this: I always ask you to help with this particular thing. If they're always asking you to help with it, it's because it's something you're good at. Oh, you know a lot about this topic. Again, that's something that you're good at if you know a lot about it. If people think that you know a lot about something, it's a skill. They might say, I can always ask you to do this. Again, a skill. I'd always ask you to talk to a client for me. You know, I'd always want you to talk to a client rather than me. That must mean that you're good with people. It must mean that you're good at client services, that people trust you. Yeah, so think about what that would say about you. So, and it is really, really genuinely good. And if you can do this for yourself, then perfect. You know, what words would people use to talk about you? See what you can come up with. But it might be that instead of coming up with this himself, you ask somebody else and see what they do say about you. So pausing for questions again, and time for more coffee as well. Looks again like we've got quite a quiet one today. We don't seem to have any questions at all. I'm assuming that's because I am expertly telling you all the content of this presentation, and you have no questions because I'm describing it all so well. There we go. That's that Dunning-Kruger effect. Again, I'm in the what did I call it? The confidence peak. But if you do have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat. Chami's there to answer them, and we do have more breaks like this to ask questions and to see if there's anything we can help you out with. But let's move on then to our final circle in the Venn diagram, which is something that people value. So we know we've got things that people enjoy doing. We know we've got things that you're good at. How do we find something that people value? In a lot of ways, this is the hard part. So we need to ask ourselves some questions. Number one, where would you be of value? What industry? What profession? You know, would you be valuable to a dentist? Would you be valuable to an accounting firm? Would you be valuable to a graphic design company? Would you be valuable as a sports coach? You know, where would you be as value? To whom would you be of value? Which people would value you? And this can be, it could be your customers, your clients. You know, what kind of person would you deliver your sort of skills to? It could be what kind of company. You know, would you be more valuable to a small business or a large business? And then finally, why would you be of value? What skills and what value do you have that you could offer? So let's share some examples of people who found some fulfilling work, and hopefully that will help you understand, where your value might be. So we'll start with Abigail. So Abigail works in technology. Abigail worked for a big entertainment business down in London. And what she used to do is that she'd come into the office with cakes that she'd made. So she'd bake cakes and she'd bring them in for her colleagues. And people kept telling her, these cakes are so good. I would buy these cakes. These are professionally made. I would pay money for this. So what she did was realize that basically people were telling her, I value this skill. I value this skill so much that I would pay a lot of money for it. That's really useful to hear, isn't it? Because she knows that there could be a market for this role. So she tried to make a career of it. She heard her colleagues saying, I would pay money for your cakes. And she went, well, if you pay money for my cakes, maybe other people would. So she started selling them. She started a bakery called Abby's Pantry. She started it in London, and then she moved all the way up to Edinburgh. And she turned that from a skilled hobby into a fulfilling career. Claire and Rachel were two friends who they were in a very professional career. So Claire was a barrister, so working in the law, and Rachel was a sonographer, who's somebody who does ultrasound scans at hospitals and diagnoses those scans. So very complicated medical career. So those are two, a lawyer and a doctor. Those are two things that you would think, all of our parents want us to be lawyers and doctors, right? That's what my parents wanted me to do. It's like, you're going to be a lawyer, right? You're going to be a doctor. I'm a marketer and a professional wrestler, so a disappointment. But these are careers that a lot of people would say are fulfilling, are careers that you should aim for, but they didn't find them fulfilling. What they realized was that there was a niche in the market that wasn't being filled, and it was to do with weddings. And basically, they realized that there wasn't a directory for queer and same-sex marriages. I very recently got married to my wife, and part of doing that was calling a lot of vendors, people who could provide us with a venue, could provide us with catering, things like that, and having to deal with the fact that we're two women, and that maybe those vendors and those caterers were going to say no on the basis that they're not comfortable with two women getting married. Maybe even worse, they'd say yes, but they'd make things uncomfortable on the day and sort of ruin our wedding. That's something that's quite stressful. So what Claire and Rachel, they realized that was something that queer couples have stresses about. And so they set up a website called How Do I Do? And this is a directory of wedding suppliers and wedding planners. And the idea was that it would all be people who were safe and comfortable and happy working with queer and LGBTQ plus marriages, so that all couples could always find people that they know that would be comfortable and that wouldn't cause any issues on their big day. So they found a niche. They worked out, hey, there's this thing that is not currently being filled. There's this need that people have that isn't being filled, and we could be the ones to fill it. So they set up that directory together. And then we've got Shaquille. So Shaquille was working in HR and was good at working in HR. But what Shaquille wanted was to work independently. So instead of changing careers completely, he still stayed in HR, but he wanted to become a consultant and to work for himself and to consult with other businesses. And by doing that, what he did was he started up a hashtag called Catch Up Over Coffee on LinkedIn. And what that did was that it helped expand his network to 1,500 different connections. He's found new clients. He's become an HR consultant. And he's been able to grow his client base as a result of that. So it could be that what you're doing right now is the thing that would fulfill you and people would value, but that you would be more valuable if you did it independently. Think how many times, do you work for a company and you think, God, our clients would love it if we could just do this for them. Why can't we do that? Well, maybe you could be the person to do that for them. So let's circle back to that question. Who would value the things that you are good at and the things that you enjoy? So think about those. We've hopefully already found out, what are you good at and what would you enjoy? Who would value those things? First of all, what industry would value them? There's loads of different industries that could potentially be an answer here. We've got technology, healthcare, tourism, retail. Think about what each of those industries value in their employees. So media and the arts, quite an obvious one. If you're working in media, if you're working in arts, people will value creativity, whether that's visual creativity, art and graphic design, being able to write well, being able to play music, think about advertising jingles, things like that. And of course, being paid for performances. But also, creativity is really important in education. If you're teaching people things, being able to do that creatively is a real skill. It's a really useful skill because everybody learns in different ways, and actually working out how to teach people a skill in a way that will resonate with them specifically, well, that requires a lot of creativity. In the environmental industry is one that is faced with a ton of problems and tricky issues that we're trying to work out how to solve. Creativity means that you're probably also good at creative problem solving. So the environmental agency could benefit from that skill as well. Technology, we're always trying to think up new ideas for tech. Creative people are needed to do that, to help people come up with ideas. Again, we're thinking about solving problems. So something like creativity is a skill that would be valued in all sorts of different industries. So again, think what you are good at and think what people might value. What would each of these industries want from an employee? What might they need? Is there a niche there that you could fill? But also, what type of business would value you? Maybe a startup, maybe a corporate business, a charity, a government agency. There's lots of different ways. I do a lot of work with charities and non-profit organizations. I find them really great to work with, and they are my preference. I really like working for charities and NPOs. And part of that is because I really like making a difference. I think that's something that I find very fulfilling, is being able to say, like, I helped a charity, I helped someone who's really is making a difference in the world, making a positive difference. And part of that is because, they tend to be smaller scale and there's less oversight. If you work for a big company, there tends to be a lot of oversight and a lot of different voices trying to work out, what is it that we should be doing. So you have a lot more restrictions. I think with charities and smaller organizations, you can be a lot more free and a lot more creative. So we're going to take a look at taking our career plan forwards now, and we are going to look at some specifics. I'm going to take a quick break for questions. I can see that we've got a question from Kidney Farday. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing anything there. So you've asked, how do we find our skills correctly? You said that you enjoy having conversations with other people, teaching young people, or giving some suggestions. You like to talk about something intense with other people. So that's great that you've identified that. So those are things that you enjoy. So hopefully you're good at some of those things as well. And I want you to think about how you're good at them specifically. So when you're teaching young people or telling them things, is it that you have a lot of knowledge? Is that you're very knowledgeable? You've got lots of sort of ideas in your head. Are you creative? Is it that you're great at expressing things in a very creative way? Are you articulate? Are you someone who can take something really, really complicated like calculus or, building an engine and dumb it down basically and make it really absorbable and digestible so that someone like me who has no idea what any of that stuff means could actually understand it? Is it that you're fun? You're engaging? Do people enjoy having those conversations? People enjoy learning from you? Because these are all slightly different skills that are all to do with, talking to other people, teaching people, but they're all slightly different. So have a think about what it is specifically that you like about these things. What is it that you enjoy about them, and what is it that you're good at? If I had to choose somebody to teach a group of young people, why would I choose you over someone else? Because people absolutely will choose you over someone else. So what is it that you have to offer? These are just ways that we can think about the things that we're good at to really solidify what our skills are. Because the way that you've described that, it sounds like teaching and education is absolutely something that you could go into. But that, again, that could be anything. You could teach a young person's dance class. I teach self-defense. I've taught a queer self-defense class for young people. teaching them martial arts and sort of practical skills. I'm not a teacher, but I still work in education in a way, and I'm still using similar skills to you. So have a think about not only what specific skills you have, but also all the different areas that you could use those skills in. So how do we go about actually putting this into action? Well, we can look for jobs, nice and simply. Google Jobs is a job board that sort of sweeps all of the other job boards. So if you are looking for a job and you're finding that it's hard to find one, go to Google Jobs. What you can do is you can search for jobs near you. You can search for specific industries. You can see that we've got some loads of options around the top. So if we search for graphic designer jobs London, what we get is a lot of different options for types of graphic designers that we can filter it by. Do you want to be a graphic designer, a designer? Do you want to be freelance? Do you want to be an animator? Do you want to work for a company? So we can use those keywords to filter our jobs. We can also filter it by title, by location, by the type of job, things like that. We can set alerts as well. So you can get emails every single day or every week or every time they come up, telling you whenever there is a new job posted in the area that you're looking for. So in this case, we could set an alert. So whenever there is a graphic designer job that comes up near London, you would get an email. So you'd be able to apply for that job straight away as soon as it comes up. You could search for jobs on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn.com is sort of the professional social network. I'd recommend that everybody sets up a LinkedIn profile, a sort of homework for today. It's really, really, really useful. It's really necessary because recruiters use LinkedIn to find people for their jobs. So if you've got a good LinkedIn profile that describes your skills and describes your talents and your abilities, potentially recruiters might get in touch with you and ask you to sign up for a job without you having to apply for it. So LinkedIn can be really useful. And of course, it's also a jobs board. People post jobs to LinkedIn. So you might be able to find jobs there that you wouldn't be able to find anywhere else. You can also use freelance marketplaces. So there's Fiverr, there's Upwork, and there's freelancer.com. So if you want to work for yourself, freelance marketplaces can be a really great way to find clients. These are popular places where you can get loads and loads and loads of traffic. And it's a great way to hire out your services to different businesses, different companies. So let's look at some more practical things you can do, because, telling you all to apply for jobs, well, you all know that you need to apply for jobs. That's not that useful. But what else can you do to really make sure that your career is moving? Well, one thing that we can do is we can make sure we're taking small steps. So this is a great framework for things that you can be doing continuously over and over again to keep moving your career forward. So you can see here what we've got is we've got a to-do list. So we've got things like update your CV, update your LinkedIn profile, schedule a career development chat with your manager, find and meet with a mentor, have an informal conversation with someone who shares something in common with you. These are all things that you could do to help your career. Think about what you could do there. Think about the different things that you could do to put on your to-do list. And then think about when you're going to do them. So we're talking here about the kind of the regularity of them. So quarterly, maybe each quarter you're going to update your CV. Make sure you've always got it up to date and relevant with all the new skills and qualifications and experience you have. Maybe you're going to do the same thing with your LinkedIn profile. Maybe you're going to have a career development chat with your manager once a year. Maybe you're going to do some things just once. So finding and meeting with a mentor, you can do that just once, and then you've got a mentor and you don't need to do that again. So have a think about those things. And then next, think about your leadership skills. Now, you might not think you need leadership skills, but leadership skills are really, really, really useful progressing forward in pretty much any role. So absolutely develop your leadership skills. So think about the things that you could be doing, not just in your career, but also to develop your skills as a leader. Come up with a bit of a basic plan in those continuous small steps. So what are your goals? So here we have some goals. Become more analytical and brand yourself as a numbers person. Take on responsibilities with the sales team. Create more opportunities in the week to exercise. So those are all good goals, right? But what do we have to do with those goals? Well, let's think about them a little bit more, and let's think about the benefits of those goals. So what would the benefits of the goal be for you, for others, and for your business? So if you want to become more analytical, well, what would be the benefit? Well, you'd be better at making decisions. You'd be better at solving problems. You'd be better in data-driven roles. So we're not just thinking about what you want, you're also thinking about why you want it. That's really useful if you're trying to sell your skills to an interviewer, for example. Why do you think you should have this job? Well, I'm a numbers person. And that means I'm really great at improving my decision-making abilities. I'm really great at solving problems. I'm really great in data-driven roles. That's a much better answer than just I'm a numbers person. So really useful to think about the benefits of your goals. Next steps. How are you going to achieve that goal? What steps are you actually going to take to achieve your goals? So maybe you're going to enroll in some online courses on data analysis. Maybe you're going to practice with some real world data sets and analyze that data and see if you can work out and solve any problems. Maybe you're going to seek mentorship from a data expert. And then really importantly, when are you going to complete that goal by? When are you going to be a numbers person? It's really important to do that, because if we don't, then we have open-ended goals and we can just sort of keep having them. We can never really achieve them. I mentioned that I'm a self-defense instructor. I set myself a goal to do that a while ago. And this is years and years and years ago. I thought I'd really like to help my community, the LGBT community. I'd really like to help them out. And I'm a martial artist, so maybe I could teach some kind of martial arts, some self-defense. And I just had that in the back of my head. And eventually, I'd never done it. I hadn't done anything with it. I just got that goal in the back of my head. It's like, I'm going to do it at some point. So what I did was go, well, no, this isn't working. You're going to either you're going to have this finished in 6 months, or you're never going to do it. So I set that as my goal. Right, you need to have a self-defense class in 6 months' time. How are you going to do it? So I took a course. I took a BTEC course in self-defense instruction, so I could take my existing skills and apply them to this particular goal. I found a venue. I worked out how I was going to advertise my course, my classes. And so in 6 months' time, I'd got to that deadline and I'd achieved that goal. And I couldn't have done that until I'd set that deadline. So it's really important that we do that. So we might say end of this quarter, we might say in a year's time, in a month's time, and so on and so forth. And then for each goal, have a status. Have you started this? Are you currently progressing with this? Or have you done it? And then if we've got this as your basic plan, then we've always got this ready to go. We can always look at this and say, well, this is what I need to work on this week. This is what I need to work on today. This is what I need to work on this quarter. We've also got question templates to find your career goals. So we start with a certain question. And for each one of those, we ask a series of other questions. So a starting question would be, what is the next skill I want to develop? Well, okay. How are we going to let's progress that? What do we want to achieve? So what are our goals here? We're going to use this question to answer this question. So the next skill I want to develop, well, what do I want to achieve? Well, I want to become a mentor to new starters in my business. That's one of my goals. That's what I'd really like to do. So that's going to help us answer the question, what skill do I want to develop? Well, I want to become a mentor, so I need to develop my mentoring skills, my mentorship skills. Okay, great. How are you going to get there? Well, you can have a step plan to do that. I want to research available resources. I want to create a learning plan. I'm going to dedicate regular time to doing that. And then I'm going to seek feedback and assess my progress. How will you know when you've got there? Again, having that deadline, having that measure of success, so you don't just have it in the back of your mind as a continuous thing. Well, you will have got there when you've demonstrated proficiency, when you've demonstrated that you're a good mentor, when you've got positive feedback from your mentees, and when you've had a positive impact on your mentees' careers. And again, when will you finish this? End of the year. Really important to have that last one. Know when you're going to finish your goals. Know when you're going to succeed. So think then about your career priorities. What is it that you want to prioritize here? Is it that you want to learn new things? Is it that you want to add to your experience? That you want to meet your career goals? We've got even more here. You think about what your priorities would be. We're going to come up with a priorities plan for this. And what this is all about is rating how important these various elements of work are to you. Because all of these things are good, right? We all want to learn new things. We all want to be more experienced. We all want to be valued and so on and so forth. But it's about working out what's the most important thing to you. So if I was to look at that, if I was to pick three, I can say, well, okay, money and benefits. That's nice. That is good. But that's not my priority. My priority is I want to feel valued. 100% I want to feel valued. I want to add to my experience. I want to feel like I'm getting better at something. And I want interesting work. I don't just want to be doing a job. I want to really do something I'm interested and passionate about. So those would be my three priorities. And what we can do is sort those into a plan. So here are our criteria. Here are our priorities. Learning new things, doing things that add to my experience, meeting your goals, and feeling valued. These are our priorities. These are the things we really value. Okay, well, let's take each of them and we'll develop them more. How important are they in the next 3 months and the next year? Maybe we will rate this on a 3 out of 5. Maybe learning new things, that's reasonably important in the next 3 months. In 3 months' time, if you'd learned something new, you'd be pretty happy. But it's a 5 out of 5 for a year's time. If you haven't learned anything new in a year's time, you will feel like you've failed. You'll feel like you've let yourself down. So your priority then is to get some new things learned within the next year. And we know that. We've worked that out. We've thought about how important would that be. Right now, how are you feeling about it? Nervous but motivated, maybe. Maybe you're feeling really confident about it. You're definitely going to get that done. It doesn't really matter as long as we recognize that. What could help then? What could help in the next 3 months and what could help in the next year? Maybe a short course in project management would help in the next 3 months. That would help you learn some new things. In a year, maybe a certification would be what helps. Maybe that's what you're looking for. So try and work out, when it comes to your priorities, what are you going to do in the next 3 months? What are you going to do in the next year? How important is it for you to have these things done in the next 3 months and the next year? And that's going to help you work out what to prioritize and what to do, because it can seem overwhelming. And when you've got loads and loads of things that you feel like you need to learn, it can be really overwhelming. So the priorities plan, what it does is it helps you work out, well, what should you be learning right now? What should you be focusing on right now? Because that's the important thing for you. And Camille, I've just spotted a comment there from Camille. I think the priorities plan is nice to overcome your imposter syndrome. Yeah, I think absolutely. It's a really, really great way of overcoming imposter syndrome. It helps you feel a big part of imposter syndrome is that there's loads of things that go into it, and I'm not a psychologist, obviously, but a big thing with imposter syndrome is that none of us are as skilled as we could be. And that's not a bad thing. There is always going to be more to learn. There's always going to be ways that we can improve. Again, I'm good at this. I'm really good at this job. Hopefully you all agree that I've done a good job here presenting this presentation. I've done a good job explaining these concepts and teaching these things, but I could still get better. I could still be way better at this. And because of that, it feels like I'm not very good at it. That's where imposter syndrome comes in. So if we can feel like we're developing, we can feel like we're learning and we're getting better at something, well, that's a good way of dealing with it, because you're never going to be perfect at everything. You're never going to be an expert in everything. So it's always going to be feeling like there's people who are better at this than you. But if we're learning and developing, if we're continuously working on our priorities and moving towards our goals, well, then it starts feeling a lot less like imposter syndrome and more like you are making progress and developing. And that's really useful and really important for our mental health. So we're reaching the end. We have our last question break. Kidney Friday, you said that you talk about mental health and motivating other people, even maybe you don't feel what they feel. So how about being a speaker or a motivator? Yeah, you could absolutely be a motivational speaker. That's a very good, very positive career. Think about how you're going to get experience doing that. Think about how you're going to develop that skill. And think about who would value that, who would pay you for that. Maybe you'd need a niche for that. There's a lot of motivational speakers that I wouldn't really follow, but there are people who I follow who specifically talk about motivation within the martial arts world, because again, that's something that I do. That's something that I have a hobby with. I really benefit from people who can explain sort of that motivational things and motivate people within martial arts. You've mentioned mental health as one possibility. I think that's a fantastic idea. You know, motivating other people, even if it's just motivating them to talk about their mental health, it's really valuable. So I think that's a great idea. I've seen Claire, keeping a record of your successes is so important. Yeah, absolutely is. We forget our successes so easily. So it's really important to record them and mark, I did this thing that's really good. Make a mark of that, and then you'll feel so much more confident in the long run. Any ideas for finding a mentor? There are loads and loads and loads of mentorship programs, certainly in the UK. Specifically for different, so there's a lot of mentorship programs for specific groups. So female mentorship is one, mentorship for people of color, mentorship for the LGBTQ plus community, that kind of thing. I would just do a quick Google and see what mentorship programs are available and see if you can find one through that. There are always people looking for mentors and looking for mentees even. If you have a workplace, if you work for a company, they might have a mentorship program, or they might consider starting one if it's something that you suggest. So think maybe potentially going through your work as well could be an option there. So we are basically out of time. I hope you have enjoyed this session. I've certainly enjoyed it with you. Thank you all for your comments and your questions. It's been amazing. It's been really useful. If you have any feedback today, we have a feedback form that is super helpful for us. Whether it's good or bad feedback, I mean, if it's good feedback, great. That means I look great. That means Chami looks great. We love that. So definitely tell us how good we are. But if there's something that we've not done very well, let us know as well, because we definitely want to improve these sessions whenever we can. You know, that's part of our priority plan. That's part of our continuous improvement, is that we want to get better at this. So let us know with a feedback form. You can scan the code there. You can go to that URL. And that's it. So the only thing left to say is thank you. I think I'm over time slightly, only by 1 minute. So I won't talk for much longer, but thank you all for listening. Thank you, Chami. You've done a fantastic job of being a moderator. I hope you've all enjoyed it. And hopefully we'll see you again on another Digital Garage session in the future. Take care, everyone, and bye-bye.